See, that's the problem, though, because you don't have to have faith that Jesus is the Son of God to follow asceticism. Do you know what I mean? This is something that a lot of religions focus on, this idea of giving up desire. Buddhism comes to mind, but I mean, so does Islam. So once you give up these desires, you have overcome the world as defined by Pastor Byun. But then where are you left if you're not Christian? Hi everyone, I hope you're as excited as I am dreading this. Let's go ahead and get started with Chapter 1 of The Kingdom of Overcomers. This chapter is titled, Christians are Overcomers. Many people assume that those who are mature in faith are the overcomers. Those who are still young in the faith are those who are defeated. What? Many people assume that those who are mature in the faith are the overcomers and those who are still young in the faith are those who are defeated. I'm almost there with you. I mean, I don't assume that anybody who's just had faith for a long time is an overcomer, but I can understand that maybe with experience and life events, maybe they've had to overcome to maintain their faith. I can go with that, but those who are young in faith are defeated. Isn't there a better word for that? Who are inexperienced? Who are still in training? I don't know. Bizarre. So we're already off to a weird start. But this is not true, of course, right? All Christians are overcomers. We get a quote from 1 John 5, 4 through 5. For whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? Despite it being clearly written in the Bible, it is not easy to admit that all Christians are overcomers. Why? This is weird. We're starting off weird. You're already assuming that most Christians, or at least new Christians, are just, losers? I don't know. Bizarre. This is so weird. It is indeed difficult to make this claim while looking at the broken Christians in our world. However, this is because it is incorrectly taught in churches that salvation is by faith alone. Ooh. And that the entirety of salvation is the same as justification. However, there is more to salvation than just justification. There is also regeneration. Regeneration refers to being born again into a new being. 2 Corinthians 5:17 and Ephesians 2:10. These verses above in 1 John also refer to being born again. John states that, quote, everyone who has been born of God overcomes this world, end quote. The phrase born of God is referring to this notion of being born again. Everyone means there's no exception to this. It's not just a portion of born again Christians who overcome. Everyone who is born again overcomes the world. On the other hand, those who do not believe cannot overcome the world. That is why it is written that without faith it is impossible to please God, Hebrews 11:6. And that one who overcomes is the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God, 1 John 5 through 5. Okay, good. I was about to ask, what are we supposed to overcome? Why is it bad that I haven't overcome the world? So we have, but what exactly is the born-again Christian supposed to overcome? The answer to that question would be the world, okay? Well, then what then is the world? Okay, good. I'm glad the author is at least asking the questions that it seems natural to ask and not just assuming we know. We can find the meaning of this word in 1 John 2:15 through 17. Do not love the world nor the things in this world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the boastful pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away, and it also lusts. But the one who does the will of God lives forever. Is that it? That's the world is just lust? Oh, and boastful pride. Okay, that's it. Not learning or interacting with your fellow human being, making the world a better place because God's not doing anything about it. That's not life or the world? Okay. So how many of you have already overcome this then? John says in verse 15, to not love the world or the things in the world. This world is just the object which we must not love. Judging from this, the world is not referring to God or our neighbors. It is referring to our enemies, or is not referring to our enemies, persecutors, or the wicked. For we are told to love all of the above. There are things, however, that born-again Christian is supposed to hate, things that should not be the object of our love. In 2 Timothy 3, Paul reveals to us that self, money, and pleasure would be such things. Thus, it would not be wrong to say the world is referring to selfishness, greed, and sexual immorality. Let's go and check out 2 Timothy 3, because just to say pleasure, I don't immediately think of sexual immorality. So let's check it out. So we're at 2 Timothy verse 3, Timothy, and we're going to try to check this out with what may be what the pastor's using as the New International Version. And I'm just going to see if we see anything where it says sexual or sexual immorality. No. I see lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, having nothing to do with such people. They are the kind who worm their ways into homes and gain control over gullible women, who are loaded down with sins and swayed by all kinds of evil desires, but always learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. Well, at least we got something close to knowledge. Does the King James Version give us anything close to this? Lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. For this is the sort that creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lust, diverse but without the E, just the older spelling. Okay, I guess there's one mention that could be considered something that is sexual immorality, but overall, I mean, the closest thing there is just forcing yourself on women. That would be not sexual immorality. We would consider that to be something else, you know? So that's weird. It's always weird when they think pleasure, they think sex. You know, it's always on their mind, so they think it's always on our mind, and it's just not. Yeah, I was a lot more preoccupied with those things when I was a Christian, because those are the things that we were told you can't do, can't have, can't. You know, and just like if you're on a diet, you start obsessing over, I don't know, donuts and frappuccinos because you can't have those, right? So once you allow yourself to do it, you stop obsessing over it. I guess this is one of those things. The meaning of the world can be more clearly understood in the following verse. I sure hope so. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the boastful pride of life. 1 John 2:16. To think in these terms of a metaphor, think of the world as a country. The king of this particular country is the one whom Jesus called the king of this world, or Satan. In this country, the world, there is an army to protect and expand the country. The Army, Navy, and Air Force, Marine Corps, missing. Okay, Pastor. The Army, Navy, and Air Force of this world are the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life. Okay, so then what are the Marines? What are we left with? Are we left with money? No. No. I guess self. Marines would be boastfulness, I think. So we think we can do everything. And the funny thing is, they're right. Okay, so the army is expanding the world with lust and pride. These three forces tempt and attack God's people. Thus the world that we must overcome is the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. All right, so in this metaphor then, who were attacking God's people, but they still live in this nation. So why would the Army, Navy, and Air Force attack their own people? That's a little bit weird. Or when they become Christian, they're leaving and they attack them to stop them from leaving. I don't know. What do you think? Pause it, let me know. What do you think the pastor meant by this? The phrase overcomes the world should now make sense. No, it doesn't. Sorry, Pastor. No, it doesn't. It means to overcome the lust of flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. I mean, again, if you're gonna... I think you're defining it in a weird way, and then you left out self, money, and pleasure. So, isn't that what they're overcoming too, if they're gonna hate those things? It's a bit... I don't know, it's a bit confusing. So then if you don't have lust, and you don't have pride, but you're not Christian, where does that put you? And then why, and this of course brings us back to that question of why would God give Satan the world, knowing that we're here and that he can corrupt us and hurt us and cause us to sin and go to hell and be tortured forever? Why would a loving God do that? So no, none of this makes sense, Pastor. In other words, not falling to the temptations and attacks of these three things and staying strong is what it means to overcome the world. Okay, so it's like a mental jihad. That's what it is. It's like to struggle for God. Let us read the verses in 1 John, again with this in mind. For whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. Who is the one who overcomes the world, but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? See, that's the problem though, because you don't have to have faith that Jesus is the Son of God to follow asceticism. Do you know what I mean? This is something that a lot of religions focus on, this idea of giving up desire. Buddhism comes to mind, but I mean, so does Islam. So once you give up these desires, you have overcome the world as defined by Pastor Byun. But then where are you left if you're not Christian? Where does that put you? When the meaning of the world was vague, this verse may have not been that big of a surprise. However, once you understand what the world signifies, the verse is bound to shock you. Yeah, it shocks me that you're not giving us answers. For this implies that those who cannot overcome and are dragged out by the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life are not truly reborn. It means they cannot enter heaven. This may be new material for some of us, but it is biblical truth. This is why the servants of God from all places and generations testified to this in one unison. First, John Wesley stated that peace and victory over sin are essential to the faith in the captain of our salvation. Charles Spurgeon also said that faith is in itself a conquering principle, that the new life is a conquering principle, and that faith, which is an outward sign, is also in itself triumphant evermore. So they're just talking about conquering and overcoming, which, you know, whatever. I mean, that's typical Christian stuff, you know, deny the flesh, right? The famous Anglican bishop John C. Ryle also wrote the following words. The one point I want to impress upon your soul just now is this, that the true believer is not only a soldier, but a victorious soldier. He is not only professes to fight on Christ's side against sin, the world, and the devil, but he does actually fight and overcome. Now, this is one grand distinguishing mark of true Christians. One great lesson I want men from these 7 epistles is this, that if you want to prove that you are born again and going to heaven, you must be a victorious Christian soldier. Victory is the only satisfactory evidence that you have a saving religion. Okay? But then how do you know you have victory? Is it just, I mean, I guess it would be kind of easy to measure, but then what constitutes overcoming lust? Is it that it's presented to you, you feel tempted and you say no? Or that you have no temptation whatsoever? Is that overcoming lust and pride that you... So this, hopefully he'll explain it. Wesley Duell also added the following words as well. I'm running out of voices here. The born believer has a victorious faith. Faith makes you an overcomer. A regenerated believer will be distinguished from a sinner by the victories over sin. His new life in Christ will be separated from his former sinful life by a consistent victory over sin. Yes, regeneration brings a changed life, a life of continuing victory over sin. The proof of salvation is victory over sin. Okay? I mean, it's kind of weird because the first part of this chapter, I was left very confused. What exactly are you talking about? And then the rest of this, all these quotes, are just pretty basic Christian theology. You know what I mean? I am, of course, not asserting that born-again Christians will never sin again. Okay, well then that answers my question. Regeneration does not connote complete sanctification. Charles Finney said it best as follows. He who does not habitually overcome the world is not born of God. In saying this, I do not intend to affirm that a true Christian may not sometimes be overcome by sin, but I do affirm that overcoming the world is the general rule, and falling into sin is the only exception. Or is only the exception. Okay, so basically you're not perfect, which again, it's pretty basic Christian theology, and that's it. Like so, those who are born again will overcome the world, of the world. They are not to be defeated. Based on this fact, I want to frankly ask you all this question. I will not ask whether or not you are assured of your salvation. Let me ask you this instead. Are you an overcomer, or are you one who is defeated? Alright, well, I think we can use this as a time to talk to you guys and ask what are some things that you've overcome, and did you overcome them while you were religious, if you were in the past, or while you were not religious? For me, I've found it's a little bit easier to overcome things as an atheist, because with Christianity, there's not really any work that goes into it. You kind of have this idea that you give it to God, and it's supposed to take care of it. That my faith alone is supposed to handle it. And there's not really any instruction on how to navigate the waters of overcoming a bad habit, addiction, etc. There's no real instruction on how to do that. It doesn't talk about progress being non-linear. It says you're supposed to basically make progress most of the time, if we use one of the quotes from the book, and that failing, or backsliding is the exception. It's not about actually overcoming anything, but constantly being in a state of not being able to overcome and constantly having to tell God, you are better than me, you are higher than me, I am nothing, I have to give everything to you. And when you inevitably fail, you are reminded to go back, repent, and it's just kind of this cycle that happens. But if you don't have that faith, and you think, if I want to end what I'm doing, if I want to overcome my, again, bad habit, addiction, whatever, or start a good habit or something along those lines, it's on yourself to have to do that. Maybe that's what they mean by the pride of self, is to realize that I have to fix what's wrong in my life, and I have the ability to do that. And if I can't do it alone, I know where I can look for help. We can look towards doctors, there might be medication that can help us, there might be therapy that can help us, there might be just talking to friends and finding support from people that care about us and that we care about too. Those are things that we can do to overcome or to be held accountable. And we're not constantly on our face, crying, praying, saying that we're failures and of course we're going to fail and failing. Instead, we're actually able to make progress. That's much better, in my opinion. So I would say that I am an overcomer, but not that I'm Christian. I've been able to look at some of the things in my life and be dissatisfied with it and make the effort to change. And if I fall on my face, I don't cry out to God. I look for help from people that actually can help me and can show me the way out of my situation, who can give me, step-by-step instructions or just what to expect, or let me know, hey, this is normal the first couple weeks that you're trying to do this thing, but keep going through it, etc. And then when I learn about this and overcome it myself, I can help other people as well. And this is much more useful. It's really sad for me that people will sometimes place their success on God, not realizing their success is actually coming from within. Because if it was as easy as giving it to God, then there would be almost no quote-unquote sinful acts in the church. There would be no issues with lust, especially inappropriate lust towards people who should not be on the receiving end of your lust. I'll just say it that way. There won't be any problem with drinking or gambling or drugs. But we know these are problems in the church, these are problems at the mosque, at the synagogue, at all these other temples. We know that just having faith is not enough to fix your problem or to show you how to overcome your problem. So it's unfortunate that some people just look at themselves as totally useless, worthless, powerless, and the only way they can get out of it is by giving all their issues to God, which again just creates that cycle of I'm on my face, I'm nothing, I feel a little bit better, I can do it, God's gonna help me, I failed, I'm on my face, I'm nothing, God's gonna help make it better, I failed. So it's doesn't work. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, especially because, you know, if you do share your story, that may help other people who read your comment, and that's far better than anything that's ever going to come out of this book. So let's take this trash and turn it into treasure in the comment section. On that note, if you guys want to check out the details section, there's different ways to get a hold of me, including Discord, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. There's also our Patreon if you want to join. For as little as $1 a month, you get all the perks like early access to the videos without ads, and a live stream that we do once a month, and just other little updates. So hopefully you can join us there, and you can also join as a free member as well. But as always, guys, thanks for listening.
In this unholy chapel, hear the whispers of the night, where demons sing praises with